So, Dr. Karyn Gordon, it is fantastic to have you with us. And something that I did not know until you told me is that you have a doctorate in overindulgence, which is fascinating to me.
Yes.
And it impacts so many parts of our lives, be it food, be it social media, and financially. And it seems like overindulgence can be a real issue when it comes to people and money.
Absolutely. So yes, my doctorate, my dissertation, so my doctorate's actually in marriage and family, but my dissertation was on overindulgence.
Okay.
And I specifically focused on families at the time, although most of the work I do today is with professionals and businesses. But the area that I focused in on the overindulgence was overeating, overspending, and overscheduling, and how those three different kind of parts really impact emotional health. And so because of that, I became fascinated on, wow, if people really don't manage their money or their food or their time, it has massive implications in terms of stress, well-being, their marriage, communication. Like it's just like this domino effect. And so I became fascinated specifically actually with money management, financial literacy, and really helping to, how do you actually really instill, how do you teach that to all ages, whether it's with couples, newlyweds, with young people, and even actually children. So I love this topic.
What do you see as the most glaring? I'd say if there was an observation that you had that you're like, this always really stands out to me, is how overspending or overindulgence or lack of discipline can really create problems in someone's life.
So I think the part that I always found really shocking, and it's been consistent, I've been practicing now for 25 years, is money management, financial literacy has nothing to do with how much money you have. I've got clients that are extremely wealthy and make well over six figures. So many of them seven, 8 figures. And but there are so many people that make a really good salary, but they have no sense with where their money goes. They don't know with where it's going at the end of the year. They've got a lot of credit card debt. And I'll say, well, where does your money? I don't know. Like there's no plan. They don't record. They don't have a budget. They don't, and it is shocking to me because, we've got limited resources, time and emotion and money, and we've got to be careful to making sure that those resources are going to the right places. And so I think that was the part that was really quite shocking to me, that, you can have somebody making, whether it's 50,000 or 500,000. I've got some clients that are making 750 and they have so much debt that is compiled, and so I think that's the part that really is quite shocking to me. And then how that affects the marriage. Like, marriage can break down for a lot of reasons, but, the stats are showing us that marriage, one of the top 3 reasons is over mismanagement of money. Couples are not aligned in terms of how that money is actually getting managed and actually spent. And it causes massive conflict within couples. And this is a fixable problem. This is not an unsolvable issue. This is a fixable problem, but you actually definitely need a plan.
So what would be some of the ways or steps that a couple would take in those circumstances or in that situation to be able to kind of right the ship and fix not knowing where their money's going, or just the trickle-down effect of the impact it has on their marriage and their overall happiness?
So there's a couple things that I like to do with couples when I'm working with them. And the first one is really identify with what are their goals? What are the things that they actually want to be doing? And let's take it like on an annual basis. What are the things that they would actually really like to do, whether it is with vacations or with camps or with, buying a new car or, getting out of debt or getting rid of credit, like just really kind of identify, like, what are the goals that they really have for themselves for that year. And I find that's a good step because, just kind of thinking about goal setting and almost vision casting with couples is more energizing. It's not really a lot of fun to kind of like pull out credit cards and find out like, where's all the money gone. Yep. But if you can kind of get people to kind of start getting a little energized around, what do you want? Like, let's talk about, this year or the next 3 years, what do you really want in terms of your own goals as a couple and as a family? That tends to get them really energized and excited. That's kind of like step one. The second step I get them to do is I do an audit. And I'm not a financial advisor. I encourage, all my clients work with a financial advisor, work with a good accountant. That's not my area. I'm going to focus on the emotional side on finances, not the financial side, right? So I kind of help to differentiate that. But I will get them to a lot of times like do an audit, like basically go through and look at where are you spending your money? What's kind of coming in and where is it actually going out? And having that data is really important. And usually what happens when couples actually do that is they're pretty shocked. They're like, oh my goodness, we spend how much on going out? How much on lattes at Starbucks? Like it's the little, what I have found, it's the little spends that all add up. And so once they do that, that is a really sobering moment for a lot of couples. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe of what a terrible job we've done with this. And then the third step is like, okay, that's fine. Now we have the data, then lean into it. Let's not, blame and shame each other. Let's kind of like move forward and kind of create a plan. And what is a realistic budget that you think you could actually stay within? And so it's kind of those three steps. And some couples like jump in it right away and kind of get through it. Others, they need a little bit more coaching kind of in between, but just watching them be aligned on the goal setting and the budgets, because you want to make sure your money is aligned with your goals. It's the same thing in business, right? You want to make sure whatever the goals are, that our budgets are kind of aligned with it. And then actually doing check-ins as well is really important.
Yeah, something that we like to say, Dr. Karyn, is that there's a big difference between saving and not spending. Saving often has the connotation of, I need to do more. What more can I do? How much more money could I make? And then automatically set it aside. Or what can I not spend? And by looking at not spending, you don't have to go earn more.
Right.
You just have to consume less. Not easy.
Yes.
And that leads, go ahead.
But to your point, we often overlook the little $4 purchase at Starbucks, but it's the little purchases that we consistently make every day.
Yeah.
That on the surface, in a one-off, it's $4, but throughout the course of a week, it's almost $30. And then you're just compounding that with every other decision that you're making throughout that day.
Yes. I remember when I was in my 20s, I was doing my doctorate in my late 20s. But in my early 20s, I was doing my master's in counseling at the time. And I had these great group of friends, and we were all talking about, I had goals very early on. I wanted to buy a cottage. I wanted to kind of pay for my own education. I wanted to, I had very strong goals early on. And we come from no money, very humble background, had to pay for everything myself. And so and my mom and dad were fantastic at teaching financial literacy to us, really, really great. And so I think just from a young age, even from a personal perspective, I started learning a lot of the foundations. And then later on in my professional career, I kind of learned more of the science in terms of why this is actually so important. But in my early 20s, I remember one of my really good friends, he had a summer job, and he was I think he made about over 20,000, we're in our early 20s. And the end of the year, I'll never forget, I said, so how much did you save? He goes, I don't have any savings. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any savings? You just worked your tail off for the summer. And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I don't know where my money went. He goes, I got some underwear. I still remember him saying, he's like, I bought some underwear, I got some beer, and I got, went on a few trips. And he goes, I literally, and all I know is my credit card is full, and I honestly don't know. And that's when I realized, wow, this is so crazy that you can earn so much money and have no concept and self-awareness with where that money actually goes. And so starting to be aware around that this is a resource that can help us in our life, but it can really harm us if we don't have a plan around it.
We have, Dr. Karyn, clients will come to us and say, what's the best advice you can give us?
Yeah.
And the interesting, it doesn't have anything to do with a stock. It has nothing to do with a bond, mutual fund. It's simply spend less than you make.
Yes.
And it's such a simple concept, but that is the best advice we can give anybody, because by simply living within your means, everything else becomes so much easier.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Simple, but not easy. We all know it. It's like knowing that you should not be eating processed foods as much as we probably all do. We know it, but it's not as easy. So, I'm curious about this because I think this ties in with spending. Is spending money something you think people can get addicted to?
Oh, for sure.
It's so easy to do it now too, with Amazon and every app on your phone. It's so easy to do it. And I wonder if it is something that almost becomes an addiction or a comfort or a soothing mechanism for people at times.
Absolutely. I mean, the term shopping therapy, I'm sure you've heard of it, is a real thing.
I don't like it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so it's a real thing for sure. People don't feel good. They have something has happened where they don't have control. And so what can they control? They can control buying something that's going to give them comfort. So, for some people it's ice cream. I'm gonna have a bowl of ice cream, right? And for other people, it's like I'm gonna buy something on Amazon or, go shopping. I I get why people do it. It's fast, it's easy, but it kind of feeds into instant gratification, right? And instant gratification is not going to lead people to happiness. There's been a lot of science and research done that, when we talk about the American dream and what do people want? I want to be happy. If you want to be happy, you have to be self-disciplined. Like you don't get one without the other. And to be self-disciplined, you have to be self-disciplined in all parts of your life. What are the goals that you have? What are the finances you have to kind of support those goals? And so really, but self-discipline is not sexy, right? It's not sexy. It's not like, woo, right? Like everybody wants to sign up. Everybody wants that instant gratification, but it's a fundamental if people really want to have a great life, a balanced life, and a happy life, is to be self-disciplined. And one of them areas is actually around money.
You've mentioned goals. You just talked about self-discipline. I'm going to jump all the way down our sheet of notes here because I think it's a really good tie-in to being confident in what is most important to you and maybe not what is most important to those we see on Instagram or Facebook or other places, or assumptions that we make about what others may have. And you have a book, 3 Chairs, How Great Leaders Drive Communication, Performance, and Engagement. It was a bestseller, USA Today, Wall Street Journal. Your TED Talk on the topic, which is fantastic. And we've linked in the show notes, there's over 1 million views on YouTube. So I'm curious, how does being more confident lead to more beneficial results from a financial perspective?
So it's a great question. So in the book, I talk about 5 core leadership skills. Okay. There's 5 core leadership skills. I call it the middle chair. For people, go see the TED Talk. It's a great resource. You can watch with your kids. You can watch with your team. You can watch in the classroom. I intentionally designed the TED Talk so that literally every age group could watch it and benefit from it. And so this is based on my professional work that I've done over the last 25 years about, really the research around confidence. And so when you think about a great confident leader, they actually have 5 core leadership emotional intelligence skills. I call it the acronym CARDS. So C stands for your communication skills, your ability to give and receive feedback. A stands for your attitude and goal setting skills. So that's kind of back to your question. I'll come back to that in a second. R stands for your relationship skills. D stands for your decision-making and self-discipline skills. And S stands for your stress and emotion management skills. So those are the 5 core skills. I talk about it in more detail in my book, The 3 Chairs. So how this is all interconnected like a big puzzle piece is that when we look at the research on why is somebody confident, okay, there's certain kind of core skills, and that's kind of like that A part, the attitude and the goal setting skills. So somebody who is confident, they have a clear sense around what they want in their life, what is important to them, what are the goals that are really important to them. So that's kind of like the A, that is the confidence skills. But not only do they have the goal, they have the self-discipline to protect it. So a lot of people will write down their goals. I want to buy a cottage, or I want to buy a car, or I want to go to school, or people will have goals, but they just write on a paper. They don't have the self-discipline to really achieve it. And so that's where you need the second, the confidence skill or the goal setting skill, but also the self-discipline skill. And then when people know what they want and they're self-disciplined, how are they going to feel? They're going to feel happy. They're going to feel less stressed because they've got a plan in place. And so that's how it affects the stress and emotion management skill. And when they have all of that, then they start feeling better. So then they have a better sense of self, which actually allows them to communicate better with other people and build better relationships. So that has a ripple effect now into your communication and your relationship skills. So these are 5 core skills that great leaders actually have. They're all interconnected. And so when we talk about finances, it literally impacts all of them, right? So if somebody has really some great emotional intelligence, they know what they want. They've got the goal setting skill. I'm going to be self-disciplined. I'm going to protect it. I'm going to say no to buying a whole bunch of $5 lattes every day because my bigger goal is I want to save for a car. Right. So they're going to say no to the immediate, yes to the long term. So that's kind of driving home the self-discipline. And because they're doing that, they're feeling amazing. So their stress is low. They're feeling better. Do you see how there's that ripple effect that actually happens? But it all comes down to setting goals that are important to us. And this is the thing that I really try to get clients to do. There's lots of different ways to build confidence, but the best way really is by setting goals. Like, think about what is it you want for yourself? Because I've got some clients, they're like, I don't want to make 6 figures. I'm okay to make 5 figures as long as I have a lifestyle. I want a life outside of I want to be able to play. I want to be able to travel. So I really try to get clients to really think about what are the goals that you have for yourself? And then how can you set a plan up with your time and your resources to make sure you achieve your goal? So it becomes a very personalized plan versus kind of comparing ourselves to, what everybody else is doing kind of on Instagram.
Do you have a method for helping someone prioritize their goals? Because we see sometimes where clients will come and they want to do 1 through 10 and seeing which one, because for us, we need to say, all right, well, which one's most important? Right? And which one's the second? Because we can't achieve all of them this year. And so I'm very curious for what your tips may be for that prioritization.
Yeah, no, it's great. So in my book, I call it the 6 P's of engagement. And there's kind of like 6 categories when I actually try to get people to set goals. And it's interesting. I created the 6 P's because it was really great for goal setting tool for individuals. But then when I looked and studied best places to work and best teams and great managers, I found out that it's all actually the same. So when you look at teams that are really engaged and you look at companies that are really engaged, it's actually the 6 things. So there's kind of 6 categories. When I actually get couples to set goals or individuals, I do this exercise with kids, my own kids. I've got 15-year-olds. I get my own kids to do the 6 P's. My husband and we do the 6 P's every single year. It's kind of a bit of a roadmap to kind of help you kind of like map out your goal setting. So these are the 6 goals, 6 kind of categories in no particular order. The first one is your sense of purpose. What are the goals that you have around purpose? So that could be around mentoring, that could be about philanthropy, that could be about volunteering. And I usually get people to kind of like set 1 or 2 goals. Next category is professional and career. What are a couple of goals you want to set with that? It could be going back to school, getting an MBA, getting a degree, maybe asking for a raise. Third category is profit in your financial goals. What are things you want to do around that category, whether it's like getting rid of credit card debt or saving. Then you've got play. What are things you want to do for play and hobbies, recreation? Then you've got people and your relationship goals. What are some of the goals you have in terms of your relationships? And the last one is physical health. What do you want to do in terms of, it could be like running a 5K or doing a marathon. So those are the 6 categories. And then what I get people to do is choose 2. To your point, I encourage people to only choose 2 per category. So you've got 12 in total. And the reason I recommend only 2 is because it forces people to prioritize.
Right.
And then the other thing I get them to do is think of it from a 365. I call the 365 goal. So what is realistic, stretching but realistic in the next 365 days? So that's kind of the roadmap. And it's really amazing to watch people. So my husband and I have done this. We've been married for 21 years. My husband and I have done this pretty much since the day we got married. We kind of mapped out kind of with what our goals are, according to those kind of 6 categories. We do this every single year in January. We do definitely quarterly check-ins with our financial goals. We do monthly check-ins in terms of how we're doing a quarter. And what's awesome about this process is that it forces couples to really kind of get on the same page. What are we going to focus on? What are we going to say yes to? And what are we going to say no to? It becomes kind of your roadmap instead of like, should we go on this trip? Well, I don't know. Like all of a sudden you have all these decisions. You want to eliminate decisions. And so for couples, it usually takes them about 2 to 3 hours in a year, it doesn't have to take that long. And for some couples, it takes longer, but it creates a very awesome, simple framework to really get them to focus in on what are we going to say? What are we going to prioritize for this year? But I do it for those 6 different categories because you don't want it to be all financial. Like you got to make sure that it's all balanced, right? And just getting couples to kind of like identify 2 financial goals is I find a lot more realistic too for them.
And the concept of 365 is fascinating because it's Kevin, I think it's a battle that everybody has because we know that our goals should be challenging. They shouldn't be easy and we should have to stretch for them and they should have to push us. Yeah. But how do we find that balance of making sure that it's challenging? Yeah. But at the same time, realistic for us to achieve so that we're not, losing confidence because we're chasing a goal that just is not realistic.
Yes. I really like how Google actually recommends and teaches their employees. It's a concept. We have a leadership coaching program that's used worldwide, actually, with companies. We do team development and leadership development, and goal setting, and helping teams actually set goals is actually one of the modules we actually teach. And I really, really like how Google actually does it. And this is kind of with what we teach based on Google, is make it stretching but realistic. Okay, make it stretching but realistic. That's the secret of a goal. So it's got to be stretching in the sense that we don't want to just be kind of like doing what we did last year. Like, we want to be progressing. So it's got to be stretching but realistic according to with what is capable. And the 365 is just our own spin on it, because people need a deadline. People need to know, like, what is stretching and realistic within this time frame. And so from a goal perspective, when I think about the couples that we work with on the personal side, we usually do, and my husband and I will do this too, we will do our 3 and 5 year goals, and then we do our annual goals. So we'll kind of start like 5 years out, where do we want to land? And then what are the goals that we want to achieve this year according to those 5 year goals? And that really, so we're kind of like thinking long-term, but we're thinking what's doable this year. And man, is that helpful. Like, I can't even begin to tell you on how helpful that is. And I love doing this. When I coach clients through this on an individual basis, I love seeing, like, they literally feel energized, because a lot of people, they just don't know how to set goals. I mean, the research, right? Like Wharton University said only 50% of people actually set goals. Only 8% of people actually achieve their goals. So there's a very small amount of people. And yet it is, I find, such a massive piece, both for confidence and also for happiness as well.
So I'm curious to your thoughts on failure with respect to these goals, because I think as a society, or I've always thought of failure until recently as a bad thing. Meaning you didn't achieve your goal. And the point of a goal and something you have to stretch for is that there is uncertainty there. You may not achieve it, but I try to tell clients and try to observe this myself, that just because we didn't achieve the goal we defined, a failure is not necessarily a bad thing. You may have gotten a lot further than you were along. You may just have not reached the target that you had set some time ago. And I think as a whole, we can reevaluate how we look at the term failure. It's not always bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I like the term failing forward. So failing forward is a sense of, like, you have a goal and you didn't, quote, get it. So other people might perceive it as a failure, but the idea with it is lean into it, find out why you didn't get it. Were there external circumstances that were beyond your control, or were there things you could have done differently? What's your takeaway, and what can you do differently so that you progress, and you can actually move forward with that failure? It's what I call failing forward. And so I really, really like that as a concept. I also really like how Google actually teaches their employees about failing. What I find fascinating is they have this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's kind of like the 70-30, 80-20, where they actually, when they get their employees and their teams to identify with what their goals and their targets, it is a failure if people have checked off all the boxes by the end of the year. Because when they see that you've gotten 100% of your goals, what that's telling them is you didn't stretch yourself enough.
Too easy.
It's too easy.
Yeah.
So a success is you're getting 70% to 80% of your goals you're checking off, and 20 to 30% you're not. And because the whole notion is that we have to move, we are all, industries are moving, everything's moving at a very fast pace. If we are staying too safe, we're going to miss out on opportunities. So part of speed and going for things is that failure is going to be part of it. You just have to accept it. And so when you, quote unquote, fail, okay, that's part of the 20%. It's part of the process. And I love that. As my husband and I are entrepreneurs. If we had a few things that didn't work, and my husband looked at me and goes, you know what, that's part of the 20%. Like, it's amazing. It's almost like that margin. It's that extra margin around, that's part of the 20%. That's okay. That's part. And I love that as a notion. Instead of thinking we have to be able to check off every single one of our goals, it gives us some breathing space that, things can go a little bit sideways beyond our control. So I think that really helps in a mindset.
Life is variable. it's not static. It doesn't go a straight line. And I think we always need to leave room for that something's going to happen at some point that's going to take you way off track, and you may need to refocus, where you are. So I like to run, and running in the daytime is very different than running at night. And running in the daytime, you can be focused on different things. You can be looking around. You can be having a conversation. When you're running at night, you have to be very focused on just what is right in front of you. And it's a much different window. And life is like that. There are times we can be looking all around us and focus on multiple things, but then there are times we have to just focus on the headlight in front of us to make sure we get where we're going.
I never, it's interesting. My husband's a big runner. Actually, my boys are big runners too. I've never heard of anybody say that running is different in the morning at night. Never really thought about it. It's interesting. That's why podcasts are so fun. You're like, never thought about that before. It's good. It's just different perspectives, right? Yeah. So no, it's great.
At least that's what I tell myself to make me feel better at either 10:30 at night or 4:30 in the morning. Let's see what else we didn't get to here, because
I have a question. Is Dr. Karyn, leadership, is it something that is learned? Is it something that you're just born with, that certain people have this trait and they've been blessed with it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my philosophy very much is that it is learned. There are our personality, based on our profile, there will be some skills that will be easier for us to learn. I will say that. So I think personality can feed into it, but it does not determine it. But I really fundamentally believe that leadership is learned set of skills for all of us, and that it's also not based on age or title or gender or how much money we have or degrees. It has nothing. Like, when I think about great leadership, I think it's a set of learned skills. And, it kind of comes back to those kind of 5 core skills. Like, leadership is a huge umbrella. Obviously, what we really focus on as a company is leadership, emotional intelligence skills, kind of those soft skills. That's our niche. And I forgot to mention, because people are often very curious about that. People often say, can you measure it? And yes, you can. You can measure your EQ just like you can measure your IQ. And we have a wonderful free scorecard for anybody who wants to measure their own leadership, emotional intelligence. It's on our website, dkleadership.org. In Canada, .org is not a charity. All my American friends are like, are you a charity? No, in Canada.org, it's for profit and nonprofit, but it's a really great, it's free. It's a scorecard. You can use it for yourself. You can use it with your team, your family, but it helps you measure how are you doing according to those 5 core skills, because that is a really great way to kind of like lean into this and find, okay, what am I doing well and what actually needs work? But you can be, to your point, you can be a 10-year-old and be quite a great leader. But leadership does start with self. This is also part of my philosophy. Leadership starts with self. We need to kind of get, really kind of lead our own life according to those 5 skills in order to kind of lead and inspire actually other people. So that's where leadership can actually start quite young. And we teach leadership skills to both families and organizations. And you can start with children very, very young.
I'm sorry to share one of the best leadership quotes I ever heard. It was at Brockport. So Ethan and I went to the same college, Dr. Karyn. We're 5 years apart, but we both went to Brockport, which is not far from us. And his name was Dr. Borby. He was approximately 150 years old when he taught the course I was in, and it was just principles of leadership. And he got up there one time and he said, "You can call yourself a leader, but if nobody's following you, you're just out for a walk."
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was so, that was a very powerful way of putting it, that we can think we're a leader, but if nobody's following us, are we? Or are we just out for a walk? And that brought, hearing you talk about leadership and how it can be learned, made me think of that. And I think a big quality too is a willingness to adjust and adapt. The idea that, well, this is just the way we've always done it,
right,
I think is fairly antiquated from a leadership perspective.
Absolutely. In my book, I talk about agility, the agility quotient factor, which is a big new thing right now. And it kind of goes on to just around the whole notion around flexibility. Again, when we think about the goal setting, this kind of all fits into that kind of goal setting, that attitude and goal setting skills that I was talking about with cards. It is really important to be focused yet flexible in your goals. right? So, because, COVID was a great example around all of this, right? The COVID was a great example how people can be really focused, and all of a sudden we have this massive external stressor that's happened to all of us. And and how some companies were able to kind of adjust and be agile, and others kind of didn't and were kind of crashed. And so the ability to be agile and flexible yet focused is, I think, also part of that art and science around leadership and goal setting.
So we've talked a lot about individual leadership, and in organizations, or even in a marriage, leadership is not just one person. And yes, whether it's a couple or it's the leadership team of an organization, what traits or what consistent actions do the most successful leadership teams that you see do day in and day out?
In terms of best practices, that's a really good question. So one of the things that they do is that there is regular communication. Okay, so you kind of go back to the 5 kind of core skills. Okay, again, going back to, I love frameworks. I love simplicity. I love taking a lot of research and simplifying it. It's just easy for people to understand. So for people who watch my TED Talk and you look up at the middle chair, great leaders who sit in that middle chair, what they do is that they are kind of developing those 5 core skills consistently. So they have regular communication. Okay. They are transparent about what's actually going on. They are very clear about here are the goals. Okay. So going through the categories, right? They're clear about here are the goals. Here are the priorities that we're actually working on, and making sure that everybody's kind of understands their goal and how they kind of, the goals that they have and how it fits to the overall team and organization. They focus on their relationship skills. They try to really understand how different team members or clients will actually see a different situation. That's where cultural differences, racial differences, personality differences all kind of fit into play. They focus on really, again, that self-discipline, helping teams actually prioritize their goals, being ruthless in prioritization. And then the other one that is really big is that, again, the S, that's stress and emotion management. What they do is they encourage their teams to set boundaries. When I look at the best teams that we work with, they encourage their teams to turn off the email, turn off the phone, focus on high performance in terms of the hours of the day, and refueling actually at night. So that you're not actually having burnout. And that is the science of high performance. I love doing this with teams and companies that are going at a very, very fast pace. Most of the companies we work with, they're going at a very fast pace. They're doing really well. They're high performing teams, but they're running close to burnout. And so looking at the high, just again, the science around what they can do, I love teaching that. And all you have to do is just show them the data and the science. And then they realize, okay, so let's kind of look at our time. Let's kind of start setting some boundaries so we can perform at a very high level with actually lower stress, which is actually possible. So it's literally taking the 5 cards and putting into little habits with all 5 of them every single week.
Awesome.
Leadership does not only happen when it's convenient.
No, it's ongoing. And it's like a language, right? Like I talk about leadership EQ, it's almost like a language. If I said to you, the best teams in the world, they speak Spanish. You just got to speak Spanish. You're going to learn Spanish. What I have found, and we work with all kinds of different companies, is the best teams, the great teams, they have emotional intelligence. So it's a language that we're learning, these 5 core skills, that you learn it and you hone it, you teach it, you breathe it. That's what's going to actually help to really drive great performance, lower stress, and just really great engagement with teams at work, but also at home. It's the exact same set of tools you can actually apply both to your marriage, also with your children actually as well.
Dr. Karyn Gordon, what a pleasure. And some really, really good takeaways, I think, for just about anybody that will stumble across this podcast. Where can people find you?
Great question. So the best way is go to our website, again, www.dkleadership.org. DK stands for Dr. Karyn. .org. That is a great place. And we have lots of great free resources there. One of the things I love about podcasts is that it's just a way to kind of educate and help more people. And a lot of times people are like, I don't know where to start. This is really great information, but what do I start? I'd say your starting point, do the EQ scorecard. It's great. It's fast. It takes you 5 minutes. It allows you to know with where you're at in terms of your EQ. We have other free resources. We've got like a report card for parents, which is like super fun. And we also have discussion questions for the TED Talks. So for families who actually want to watch the TED Talk, or teams or schools, it's all on our website. It's all free. And it's just a great way to kind of continue the education.
Wow, fantastic.
I strongly encourage anyone to watch the TED Talk. It was great and
really good.
very insightful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you guys.
Our
Thank you for
first
your time.
international guest.
Yep.
Woo!
Well, good. We can check that off the list. Thank you, Dr. Karyn.
All right, Dr.
Thanks so
Karyn,
much.
thank you so much. All right, that was perfect.